Part 37 of 5,000 Years of War. I'm the Archivist, welcome in the 5th century BC, in the middle of the Peloponnesian War opposing Sparta to Athens in ancient Greece. As many warriors are falling in service of their home city, now is a good time to make a focus on the dead at war. Since even before antiquity, some dead have been buried with weapons, of course some made for hunting, but others also for war, the two activities requiring many dual skills in the end. After the development of metalwork, swords, in addition to pieces of armor, have indeed been found in sepulchres. The tombs of wealthy warriors have yielded quantities of weapons, horses' remains, and even war chariots in Europe as well as India. We then see the importance of war in numerous cultures. Those fallen in combat in Sparta are among the most honored of the dead. In this city and in others of the time, like Athens, steles can be found dedicated to the heroic dead, like those of the Thermopylae or of the Peloponnesian War. The dead, like the gods, are the keepers of the city. In Sparta, those that have died fighting are the only ones honored, it seems, with a name on their tomb. It is of the utmost importance for a city to recover the bodies of the fallen, and daily truce may be declared to that end. Note that if the dead can be honored, some can be victims of the failure of their descendants. In the China of the warring states, an officer that has fled can bring beyond the death sentence for himself and his clan the unearthing of the bodies of his ancestors and the destruction of their sepulchres. We can of course remember the treatment reserved for the body of the defeated enemy, like the heads tied to the saddles of nomads, but also sometimes of Gauls and Germans. And that without even talking about the devouring of the foe for, among others, Native Americans, Tupinambas of Amazonia, or tribes allied with the French in North America, for example. Funeral practices of those dead in combat could be very similar in very distant parts of the world. The burying of weapons or even chariots with the defuncts can be seen among the Etruscans as well as the Chinese. Later, Franks, Alemanni, Burgundians, Anglo-Saxons and Lombards bury their dead with their weapons too, practice even spreading to neighboring peoples during the 6th century CE. These customs will recede in face of mentalities descending from Roman culture and Christianism. Goths and Vandals apparently never did it. Nowadays, death in combat is way less glorified than before, but those fallen in the field of honor, martyrs great and small, are still almost always honored by their compatriots. To close this focus, I will read you an epitaph written on this tomb of Achaemenid king Darius I from Persia in nowadays Iran. If you would now wonder how many lands has King Darius held, look at the sculptures of those that support the throne and you will know. Then you will see this. The spear of a Persian has reached far. Then you will know a Persian has given battle far from Persia. Darius the king says, what has been done? I did it by the will of Ahura Mazda. Ahura Mazda brought me aid until I accomplished the work. May Ahura Mazda protect me and my royal house and this land. I pray Ahura Mazda. May Ahura Mazda grant it. Oh man, what Ahura Mazda commands, don't balk at it. Don't stray off the righteous path. Do not start a rebellion. Beyond death, glory for the King of Kings, even if he never fought in person on the battlefield. We can resume our history of the Peloponnesian War, main subject by far of this video. 424 BC starting, and on the fringes of Laconia, region of Sparta, and Argolid, region of Argos in Peloponnese, the town of Thyrea is destroyed by the Athenians. Thyrea was under control of Sparta since 544, and Sparta, which is still trying to recuperate after the humiliation of the Battle of Pylos, Facteria, right here, see the previous video, is mounting 4 moras of cavalry of about 100 horsemen each to try and counter the unpredictable strikes of the Athenians. But the quality of these moras is mediocre. Then, as the winter is ending, taking, among other minor affairs, of Antandros on the coast of Mysia by exiles of Mytilenus, city of the island of Lesbos. Shortly after, Athenian strategos Nicias, with 60 galleys, 2,000 hoplites and some cavalry plus allies, Milesians notably, attack Cythera, island really close to Laconia, this one. The settlements of the island, Cythera included, are quickly submitted as they are only defended by Lacedaemonian Perikoi, free men of Sparta's environs. From there, the Athenians launched several raids, sometimes with skirmishes and massacres, on the coasts of Laconia. They apply a very tight pressure on Sparta. And as summer settles, the Athenians, including Demosthenes and their allies, including Peripos, Plataean border guards, several thousand hoplites and several hundred cavalrymen in total, try to take, with the complicity of some of its citizens, Megara on the Isthmus of Corinth and its port Nicaea, both linked by long walls, like in Athens. After many developments, among them a cavalry engagement with a Boeotian force coming to Megara's rescue, Spartan Brasidas. I told you in the last video that we will talk about this guy quite a few times. That Brasidas arrives rushing from Corinth with several thousand warriors. This discourages the Athenians and they withdraw. Elsewhere, there is a brief naval engagement, and Antandros is liberated from the Mytileneans' grasp by an Athenian army. Slightly after this, the Athenian Demosthenes heads for Naupactus, right here, with 40 galleys, having a mind to go rally some Boeotians' city to the Athenian cause. Another strategos, Hippocrates, is with another army ready to assist him. Demosthenes bolsters his with Acarnanians' help, pressuring several cities and peoples to cooperate. But he won't be able to seize cities in a region, as the Boeotians will stand united against the Athenians, reinforce their garrisons, and give battle at Delion. More on this in a minute. While this time, Brasidas the Spartan marches on Thrace, its initial goal with the troops he has engaged at Megara recently. His troops then are 1,700 hoplites, Peloponnesian mercenaries, and light infantry including former helots, slaves of Lacedaemonia, who volunteered despite the possible execution of 2,000 helots from Naupactus by Sparta for having pillaged the region of Pylos after the defeat of Sphacteria. Anyway, Brasidas' expedition reaches Thrace, where Perdiccas II of Macedon and some local cities have asked Sparta to come and relieve them from Athens' oppressing influence. On site, Brasidas adds Thracians to his force. We'll see later on how he fares. Right now, we've got the Battle of Delion on our plate. It is fought in November in eastern Boeotia, between about 10,000 Athenians and allies commanded by Hippocrates and 7,000 hoplites of Pagondas, Beotarch of the Boeotian League. The Boeotians, reinforced by a few thousand light infantrymen, peltasts, archers, and Thessalian slingers, have learned of Hippocrates' plan thanks to a traitor, And against the opinion of several other Boeotian leaders, Pagondas has insisted on marching against this threat. That is how, as they are passing the crest of a hill, the Boeotians, with the advantage of height, fall upon the Athenians. Tumultuous riverbeds are on either side of the armies, preventing all flanking maneuvers, and so it has to be decided by sheer push. Pagondas knows it. He, who has had his right reinforced to 25 ranks deep against only 8 for his adversaries. First, both rights advance, the Athenians even managing to encircle the Thespians that hold Pagondas' left. But the Boeotarch sends 2 squadrons of about 1,000 cavalrymen, using the hill to hide their movement, to go and hit the Athenians right hard. This starts the complete rout of the Athenian army, and pursuit lasts until nightfall. Hippocrates and 1,000 of his men die against 500 Boeotians, including many Thespians. Light infantry and cavalry have undoubtedly played in favor of Pagondas. And just so you know, a certain Socrates, already on the field in 432, has survived the battle among a group of Athenian hoplites that managed to retreat in good order. He was saved by one Xenophon in the melee. On the grand scale of things, the Thebans take advantage of Thespia's weakening to go destroy its ramparts. 16 days after the Battle of Delion, the Boeotians, reinforced by 2,000 Corinthians, men come from Nicaea after the events of Megara, slingers and other types of light infantry, dislodge some Athenians still holding the sanctuary, fortified as they could, of Delion. They had not been able to reach the coast to flee by sea like their other defeated comrades. And so, the Boeotians use a war machine on wheels able to throw fire, and 200 Athenians are captured, the others killed or fled. And don't ask me what this machine looked like, I'd like to know too. On his side, Athenian strategos Demosthenes is repulsed as he tries to land a few hundred hoplites before Sicily, not far from Corinth. And while this time, way up north, in Thrace, dies Sitalces the Odrysian, like his father in a failed campaign against the Triballi of northern Thrace. The son of his late brother Sparadocus, Ceuthes, succeeds to him, first of his name, and at first maintains the alliance with Athens. In December, Amphipolis, city on the Strymon River, close to the coast of Chalcidice, is taken by Spartan Brasidas. Remember that his force, less than 2,000 strong, only counts 700 mercenary hoplites, helots, and peltasts, as the loss of many Omoi, the elite Spartans, at Saxeria in 425 has made Sparta shy about the use of its few top-tier combatants. Amphipolis taken by Brasidas after he already convinced the minor place of Acontos to leave the Athenian alliance. Ion, small neighboring port, defended by the Athenian Thucydides, the famous historian of these wars, resists land and river attacks from the Spartan. But Thucydides will be exiled from Athens for failing at preventing the Lacedaemonian from seizing Amphipolis. And the year 423 BC starts. In its first days, Brasidas leaves Amphipolis and attacks the Acte, a promontory on the Aegean Sea, not far from the 480 BC Xerxes I's canal. And from there, he makes devastations on the territories of Sane and Dion, both towns refusing to ally with him. He also takes Torone by night, the few dozens of Athenians holding it caught off guard. Only a few manage to retreat in the post of Lekythos, where they hold on for 2 days. Brasidas' men approach one of these flame-throwing machines, sometimes built by the ancient Greeks, from the wall, and the Athenians build on their side a wooden tower on the roof of a house in order to be able to pour water down with amphoras to put any fire off. But, overloaded, the tower collapses. Losing faith, the defenders flee by sea and Lekythos is completely destroyed. Still during the winter, battle is fought between Tegea and Mantinea at Ladocaeon near Orestian in center Peloponnese, both cities fighting alongside their local allies. The phalanx clash is undecisive and costly for both sides. And why not take a short break from the Peloponnesian War now? Not too far, don't you worry. Still toward the beginning of the year, the Persian Empire of the Achaemenid kings is in turmoil. Artaxerxes I died last December, and a conflict is ongoing between Sogdianos, stepbrother of the deceased, and assassin of his real successor Xerxes II, and Oikos, satrap of Archania, also son of the late Artaxerxes I. He's supported by Babylonian troops from there and allies from the northeastern parts of the empire. Oikos scores a crushing victory and has Sogdianos assassinated by a master of cavalry, Arbarius, before officially taking the throne around the mid-part of the year as Darius II. Those who had helped Sogdianos in killing brief Xerxes II also perish during the events. Darius II manages to get recognized by the entirety of the Achaemenid Empire, which is not obvious given the hugeness of the empire. Back to Greece now. An armistice is signed during the spring between Athens and Sparta. That's a news and a half for sure. Oh, but Brasidas the Spartan just started an expedition with 3,000 hoplites, 1,000 cavalrymen, and some barbarians, with Perdiccas II of Macedon against the Lyncesti of Arrhabaeus, rival of Perdiccas. And to reinforce even more, Brasidas has had 2 towns, Mende and Scione, to rally his side against the terms of the armistice. And so the Athenians send ships towards the 2 towns. 50 galleys, including 10 of Chios, land 1,000 hoplites, 1,000 Thracian mercenaries, and 600 archers and peltasts that retake most of the settlements after a few days of fightings, despite the 500 Peloponnesian hoplites and 300 Chalcidian peltasts that Brasidas had placed there to defend them. Scione will in truth be totally secured in 421 only, and all its men will be executed by the Athenians, the rest turned into slavery. But Brasidas and Perdiccas have launched their expedition against Arrhabaeus and the Lyncesti nonetheless. Battle is fought between them, a cavalry engagement preceding the infantry hand-to-hand combat. The allies prevail, but as Illyrian mercenaries approach, initially hired by Perdiccas but changing side, Macedonians and Peloponnesians choose to retreat. But they do so in 2 separate armies, the Peloponnesians in good order, the Macedonians in disarray and vigorously pressed by the ferocious Illyrians. Perdiccas suffers, and Brasidas preserves his men by forming a square with his hoplites, in which his light infantry is sheltered. The brave Spartan sometimes makes a charge here and there with his 300 best warriors when the moving square is too closely approached by the pursuers. In the end, Brasidas and Perdiccas II are crossed with each other, and the Macedonian decides to join the Athenian side. Well then, this marks the end of the year 423 BC. The following one sees an Athenian failure at retaking Amphipolis from the Peloponnesians. Strategos Cleon, with 30 ships carrying 1,200 hoplites and 300 riders and some allies, reaches Thrace and then Chalcidice. Going by Scione, besieged, retaking Torone in an amphibious assault, he then targets Amphipolis, where Brasidas has been awaiting him with 2,000 hoplites and 300 cavalrymen, plus a few thousand mercenaries from nearby lands, mostly light infantry. After a few skirmishes over minor neighboring settlements, Cleon approaches Amphipolis, hesitates, and then backs up. Brasidas then decides on an all-out sortie through 2 different gates, and the Athenians are completely routed. But 600 Athenians dying with Cleon, 7 Lacedaemonians and allies perish, including Brasidas. Rest in peace, brave commanders. Let's end this by precising that sometime earlier, during the winter, Brasidas had failed at taking Potidea by night and surprise by scaling the walls. And this beautiful helmet here is of course a Corinthian type helmet, the most famous one, I dare say. While all this happened, Boeotians have taken, thanks to turncoats, the fortress of Panacton at the border of Boeotia and the Attic. Lastly, for this year, there's an Athenian expedition in Sicily, trying to exploit local conflicts between Syracuse on the eastern coast and other cities, including Leontinoi, against Syracuse interests. After a setback at Gela, in the south of Sicily, the operation is ended. And so we can already move on to 421 BC. After a Samnite taking of Cumae from Greek settlers on the western coast of Italy, we notably have a peace treaty by the start of April between Athens and Sparta. Really? Yes, it is the Peace of Nicias, this one having really pushed hard for it in Athens. Signed by Argead Spartan king Pleistoanax, back from an exile started in 445, it is meant to last for 50 years. The Athenian prisoners of Amphipolis are exchanged for the Lacedaemonians of Pylos, and a few places are exchanged. Ancient helots that had served Brasidas are also freed and settled near Elis in northwestern Peloponnese. As there are tensions with aliens, these Neodamods, new citizens, will serve as a kind of border guards for Sparta. The peace treaty also gives its independence back to Delphi, which was under control of the Phocians since the Second Sacred War. The Peloponnesian League is shaken by this peace, as Corinth, Megara, and Thebes refuse it, and Argos decides to found its own small league. To end this year, after the signing of the treaty, we signal a small war between Lepreon and Elis in northwestern Peloponnese, Elis being called to aid by Lepreon, both allying against Arcadians of eastern Peloponnese. Lepreon and Elis prevail, and shortly after, a short Lacedaemonian expedition from Sparta, then in Arcadia, destroys, among other damage, the fort of Cypseles, built by Mantinea. There's also a conflict between Phocians and Locrians in these environs during the summer, and finally the taking of the small place of Thissos on the promontory of Athos in Chalcidice by the minor city of Dion. A quick year 420 BC. During the winter, Mechiberna, guarded by Athenians in Chalcidice again, is taken by Olenth, and the Athenians, on their part and in the same region, destroy Scione, which had acted in favor of Brasidas in 423. And then, during the summer, the fort of Phyrcos is taken from Lepreon by the Lacedaemonians, but as this happened during the Olympic Games, a period of truce, sacred truce, Sparta is expelled from the games for 20 years. I guess that will teach them. Quick for 1902. During the winter, battle between the inhabitants of Heraclea, Trachinia, and the coalition of Aenians, Dolopes, Melians, and Thessalians. The coalition prevails. And then, as summer has begun, a religious quarrel has turned into conflict between Epidaurus and Argos, while Athens works at turning some Peloponnesian cities against Sparta. The Argives raid Epidaurus' grounds twice, the second time accompanied by 1,000 Athenian hoplites under Strategos Alcibiades, for they are menacing Lacedaemonian troops' movements. But they are cancelled because of bad omens. The situation is explosive though. Last but 1 year for this video, 418 BC. 300 Lacedaemonians from Sparta finally take position at Epidaurus to protect it from Argos. The Argives complain about it with Athens, which responds by launching raids in Peloponnese from their position in Pylos, through some helots too, the slaves supposed to serve Sparta. Before spring, the Argives march against Epidaurus, thinking of scaling its walls, but they quickly withdraw. Soon after, King Aegis II of Sparta, accompanied by Tegeans and Arcadians, marches against Argos. And they're not alone. Over 10,000 Boeotians, half hoplites, half light infantry, plus 500 cavalrymen and hamippoi on foot auxiliaries, 2,000 Corinthians, and more still advance from Phleontus with its forces against the same objective. Argos, on its side, can count on the support of 3,000 Elean hoplites and of Mantineans. Both armies meet in several parties as the Peloponnesians have started making some devastations. The Argives first beat the Phleontans, then fight Corinthians before finding themselves almost encircled. But then, after a negotiation, Argis II of Sparta accepts a truce and retires. 1,000 hoplites and 3 riders from Athens arrive on site, surprised when they learn about this latest development. And they are not the only ones, as Argos allies decide to continue hostilities without it. Their march against Orchomenes of Arcadia, minor place of this region that submits, and now it's the Eleans that decide that enough has been done, going back to their home. Thus, the upcoming battle will take place without them. This battle is fought near Mantinea, maybe in August, between Aegis II, the Spartan coming back, of course, as soon as he learns about the continuation of the fightings, his Tegean allies, all invading Mantinea's territory in Arcadia, and on the other side, the Mantineans, Argives, and Athenians. There's about 10,000 hoplites and a few hundred horses on each side, these of the Lacedaemonian, so to say, on their flanks here, and on the Mantinean side, on the left. On the one hand, the Argives, with people from Cleones and Ornea, hold the center, 1,000 elite Argive epilectoi included, the Athenians the left with their own cavalry, and the Mantineans the right. On the other hand, the Spartans are positioned on the left and center with their king Aegis and his 300 elite Hippeis, and a few others are on the extreme right, next to the cavalry. Arcadians, Melanians, and Tegeans are between them. We'll also note on the extreme left 600 Sciritae, light infantry from northern Laconia, and Neodamodes, the freed helots that had served under late Brasidas. When combat starts, each right prevails, as is often the case, but the Athenians are more severely beaten, and Sparta's side, with 300 casualties against 1,000, scores victory. Aegis II almost started a catastrophe though, at one point wanting to reinforce his left with light infantry, 2 locoi refusing to execute his order, opening a gap in the lines. Without consequences, fortunately for him. The Lacedaemonians, as is usual for them, don't pursue the vanquished to maintain their ranks in order. almost at the same time as the Battle of Mantinea, the Epidaurians invade Argos's territory, killing many. The elements coming back from the battle, supported by 3,000 Delions and 1,000 Athenians, respond by besieging Epidaurus, but as the bad season approaches, only a small contingent is left to guard the siege lines that have been built. And to finish off, in 417, during the winter, a 50-year peace is declared between Sparta and Argos. The siege of Epidaurus is already lifted. Argos, here, Mantinea, there, and even far away Perdiccas II of Macedon declare that they now support Sparta, not Athens anymore. But during the summer, inner turmoil in Argos will push it back to its side, and the Lacedaemonians will march on Argos by the end of the year. The Argives build long walls with the help of the Athenians, who well know their way at it. The walls reach the sea, allowing for easy reinforcements. But Aegis II nonetheless manages to get past the walls and destroy them, massacring many Argives before going back to Sparta. Hysiae, place of Argolid, has been taken on the way, but the Argives are not completely tamed, as before the end of the year they'll pillage the surroundings of Leontus. Trying this again in the summer of 416 BC, they'll get ambushed and lose 80 men killed. Enough for today, I think, and next week will be very decisive for the outcome of the Peloponnesian War. War will come to Sicily, and the Athenians will have a very tough time. Thanks for your support to my work by liking and subscribing. See you all next week.